The thing about Halloween is that everyone gets to pretend to be someone else for one night. But sometimes you realize the people closest to you have been wearing masks all year long. I was adjusting my pirate costume in the bedroom mirror when I heard Alicia giggling downstairs with her best friend Susie. That laugh, high-pitched, flirty, the kind she used to save just for me, was floating up through the floorboards along with Dominic's deep chuckle. My wife's laugh, my wife's best friend, and my wife's best friend's husband, the perfect little group. Except I was starting to feel like the odd man out in my own house. "Greg, hurry up," Alicia called from downstairs. "Richard's party starts in 20 minutes. I straightened my plastic sword and headed down. Alicia stood in the kitchen wearing a black Catwoman costume that left very little to the imagination. Susie was dressed as a nurse, equally revealing, while Dominic had gone with the classic shirtless Tarzan look. The guy was built like a brick shithouse. I'll give him that. All those hours at the gym had paid off. "Looking good, Captain Hook," Dominic said, flashing that cocky grin that made me want to rearrange his perfectly symmetrical face. "It's a pirate costume, not Captain Hook specifically," I replied, forcing a smile. "But thanks." Alicia rolled her eyes. "Don't be so literal, Greg. It's just a joke." Just a joke. Everything was always just a joke when it came to Dominic, his hands lingering too long on Alicia's waist when they hugged, his eyes following her around the room, his habit of showing up at our house when I was at work. All just jokes. "Ready to party?" Susie asked, already halfway to the door. Richard's house was 3 blocks away, but Dominic insisted on driving. "My truck's got more room," he said, though his beat-up Ford barely fit the 4 of us. What it really meant was that he got to sit next to Alicia while I was crammed in the back with Susie. The Halloween block party was Richard's annual tradition. Our neighbor went all out, haunted house decorations, fog machines, a full bar setup in his garage. Half the neighborhood would be there, including plenty of people I'd grown up with in this small Michigan town. "Greg, you've been quiet tonight," Nikki observed as we walked up Richard's driveway. Richard's wife had a talent for reading people, which made her both a great friend and a dangerous enemy. "Just thinking," I said. "About what?" I watched Dominic's hand rest on the small of Alicia's back as they walked ahead of us. "About how people aren't always who they pretend to be." Inside, the party was in full swing. Richard had transformed his living room into a haunted mansion, complete with fake cobwebs and a skeleton DJ booth. The kitchen had been turned into a makeshift bar, and that's where I headed first. "Rough night already?" John appeared beside me, dressed as a zombie football player. My old college buddy had a 6th sense for drama. "You could say that." "Let me guess. Dominic?" I poured myself a generous whiskey. "Is it that obvious?" "To everyone except your wife, apparently." That stung because it was true. Alicia seemed genuinely oblivious to what everyone else could see, or maybe she just didn't care. "You know what your problem is, Greg," John continued. "You're too nice. Back in college, you would have handled this differently." He was right. In college, I'd been a boxer. Not professionally, but I'd held my own in the ring. I'd been confident, aggressive when I needed to be. Marriage and suburban life had softened those edges. "Times change," I said. "People don't." I was about to respond when I heard Alicia's laugh again, louder this time. I turned to see her and Dominic in the corner by the fake graveyard, standing closer than any married woman should stand to another man, especially when that man wasn't her husband. Susie was nowhere to be seen, probably in the bathroom or gossiping with the other neighborhood wives. She had a talent for disappearing whenever her husband was getting too friendly with my wife. "I'm going to get some air," I told John. "Want company?" "No, I need to think." Richard's backyard was quieter, though I could still hear the party through the sliding glass doors. A few other guests had the same idea, smoking cigarettes and having quieter conversations away from the music. I found myself thinking about how we'd gotten here. Alicia and I had been married for 5 years. We'd met at a restaurant where I was managing the kitchen, and she was waitressing to pay for nursing school. She was beautiful, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in building a life together. The problem started about a year ago, when Susie and Dominic moved to our neighborhood. Suddenly, Alicia had a new best friend who came with a husband who looked like he'd stepped out of a fitness magazine. Group dinners became regular events. Double dates turned into constant hangouts. And slowly, I started feeling like a stranger in my own life. "There you are?" Alicia appeared beside me, her Catwoman mask pushed up on top of her head. "What are you doing out here?" "Just getting some air. It's hot inside." She moved closer, and I caught a whiff of alcohol on her breath. "You've been acting weird all night. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Don't lie to me, Greg. I know you better than that." "Did she?" because lately I wasn't so sure. I'm fine, I said. Just tired from work. You work too much. You should come to the gym with Dominic and me sometime. He's been teaching me some new workouts. Of course he had. I'm sure he has. Alicia frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just that Dominic seems to have a lot of expertise he's willing to share. Are you being sarcastic? Before I could answer, Dominic himself appeared in the doorway. Hey, you two. Susie's looking for you, Alicia. Something about pictures. Oh, right. We wanted to get some group shots. Alicia turned to me. Come on, Greg. In a minute. She hesitated, then shrugged. Okay, but don't take too long. As she walked away with Dominic, I noticed his hand settle on her lower back again. The casual intimacy of it made my stomach turn. Trouble in paradise? I turned to find Mrs. Henderson, our 70-year-old neighbor, smoking a cigarette by the fence. She was dressed as a witch, which seemed appropriate. Excuse me? Oh, honey, I've been married for 50 years. I know the signs. She took a long drag. That boy's been sniffing around your wife like a dog in heat. Mrs. Henderson, and she's been letting him. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could respond, she stubbed out her cigarette and headed back inside, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the growing certainty that everyone could see what I'd been trying to deny. I went back inside to find Alicia and Dominic in the kitchen, standing close together while Susie took pictures with her phone. They looked like a couple, a beautiful, perfect couple. Greg, Susie waved me over. Come get in the picture. I walked over, and Alicia immediately moved to my side, wrapping her arm around my waist, but I could see the way her eyes kept drifting to Dominic. Say cheese, Susie chirped. I smiled for the camera, but inside, I was planning. The hangover wasn't from alcohol. I'd barely had 3 drinks. It was from the sick feeling that had settled in my stomach and refused to leave. Alicia was already up, making coffee in the kitchen, humming some song I didn't recognize. Good party last night, she said without looking up from her phone. Yeah, great. She was scrolling through the pictures Susie had posted on social media. I could see them over her shoulder, group shots, couple shots, and several of just her and Dominic that looked way too intimate for a neighborhood Halloween party. Susie got some really good pictures, Alicia said. Look at this one. She showed me her phone. It was a photo of her and Dominic by the haunted graveyard setup. His arm was around her waist, her hand was on his chest, and they were both laughing at something. They looked like lovers. Nice, I said flatly. You sound thrilled. I'm just tired. Alicia set down her phone and finally looked at me. Okay, what's going on? You've been acting strange for weeks. Have I? Don't play dumb, Greg. You barely talked to anyone last night. You disappeared for half the party. And you've been giving Dominic dirty looks every time he comes around. There it was, the opening I'd been waiting for. Maybe because Dominic comes around a little too often. Alicia's eyebrows shot up. What's that supposed to mean? It means he's here 3 times a week. It means you two text constantly. It means you spend more time with him than you do with me. He's Susie's husband, Greg. We're friends. All of us. Friends don't look at each other the way you two look at each other. Alicia laughed, but it sounded forced. Now you're being ridiculous. Am I? Because half the neighborhood has noticed it too. That wiped the smile off her face. What are you talking about? Mrs. Henderson made a comment last night. John's been asking me about it for weeks. Even Nikki mentioned something. People gossip, Greg. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't it? Alicia stood up, her chair scraping against the kitchen floor. I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're listening to gossip and turning it into some kind of conspiracy theory. I'm not listening to gossip. I'm listening to my gut, and my gut tells me that something's going on between you and Dominic. Well, your gut is wrong. She grabbed her purse from the counter. I'm going to meet Susie for coffee. Maybe by the time I get back, you'll have come to your senses. Alicia. But she was already out the door. I sat in the empty kitchen, staring at her abandoned coffee cup and wondering how we'd gotten here. 5 years of marriage, and it felt like I was talking to a stranger. My phone buzzed. A text from John. Dude, you see Susie's Instagram? Yikes. I didn't have Instagram, but I could guess what he was talking about. More pictures from last night, probably featuring my wife and her friend looking like anything but friends. I spent the rest of the morning doing yard work, trying to clear my head. The physical labor felt good. Raking leaves, trimming bushes, cleaning out the gutters. It reminded me of simpler times when problems could be solved with hard work and determination. Around noon, Dominic's truck pulled into my driveway. He got out wearing gym clothes and that same cocky smile. "Hey, Greg, Alicia around?" "She's out." "Oh, well, I just wanted to return this." He held up a phone charger. "She left it in my truck last night." "Of course she did." "I'll make sure she gets it," I said, walking over to take it from him. "Thanks, man. Hey, listen." Dominic shifted his weight, suddenly looking uncomfortable. "I hope there's no weirdness between us. I know some people like to talk, but Alicia and I are just friends. I want to make sure you know that." The fact that he felt the need to say it told me everything I needed to know. "Sure," I said. "Just friends." "Exactly. I mean, she's a great girl and all, but she's your wife. I respect that." "Do you?" Something in my tone made him take a step back. "Of course I do. What kind of question is that?" "The kind of question a husband asks when another man is spending too much time with his wife." Dominic's friendly expression hardened. "Look, Greg, I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You're here 3 times a week. You text my wife constantly. You put your hands on her every chance you get. And now you're bringing me her phone charger that she somehow left in your truck. It's not like that. Then what is it like?" Dominic stepped closer, and I could see the gym rat mentality kicking in. He was used to intimidating people with his size and build. What he didn't know was that I'd faced bigger guys in the boxing ring and come out on top. "Maybe the problem isn't me," he said. "Maybe the problem is that you don't trust your own wife. Maybe the problem is that my wife's friend's husband doesn't know how to keep his hands to himself." We stared at each other for a long moment. I could see him calculating whether he wanted to escalate this into something physical. Part of me hoped he would. It had been a long time since I'd had a good fight, and I had a lot of frustration to work out. But Dominic was smarter than he looked. He backed down. "I think we should table this conversation for when we're both thinking more clearly," he said. "I'm thinking perfectly clearly." "Are you? Because from where I stand, it looks like you're letting jealousy turn you into someone you're not." He turned and walked back to his truck, but paused before getting in. "For what it's worth, Greg, Alicia talks about you all the time. She loves you. Don't screw that up by being paranoid." After he drove away, I stood in my driveway holding my wife's phone charger and wondering if I was losing my mind. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. But then I remembered the way they'd looked at each other last night, and I knew I wasn't imagining anything. Alicia came home around 3, carrying shopping bags and wearing a guilty expression. "I bought you something," she said, pulling a new shirt out of one of the bags, "as an apology for this morning." "You don't need to apologize." She hesitated, like she expected me to smile and make this easy for her. When I didn't, her eyes flicked to the charger in my hand, then away again. It was a tiny movement, but it told me she'd already heard from Dominic, already knew what happened out here. "Where were you?" I asked. "Just out. Running errands." She held the shirt up like it was a peace offering. "I thought you'd like this color." "Did you run errands with him?" Her face tightened for half a second. "No. Why would you say that?" I didn't answer. I just watched her, waiting to see if the truth would fight its way to the surface. Instead, she stepped closer and tried to touch my arm. "Greg, you're scaring me." That sentence hit harder than any accusation. Not because it was true, but because it was practiced. A way to flip the spotlight off her and onto me. I gently pulled my arm back. "I'm not trying to scare you," I said. "I'm trying to understand why my wife is buying apologies instead of telling me what's going on." She swallowed. "Nothing is going on." "Then why do I feel like I'm the only person in this marriage who doesn't have the full story?" Her hands started fussing with the shopping bag handles, twisting them until the paper creased. I'd seen that nervous habit before, usually right before she admitted she forgot to pay a bill or dented the car. Small lies. Fixable lies. This felt different. "I love you," she said quickly, like it was a shield. "I love you too," I replied. "That's why I'm standing here asking. Because I don't want to become the kind of man who checks phones and counts minutes. But I also won't be the kind of man who gets played in his own driveway." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The silence stretched, heavy and loud. Behind her, the sun caught the edge of that new shirt, bright and crisp, like it belonged to a better version of today. Finally, she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's just have dinner tonight. Talk when you're calmer." Calmer. There it was again. The word Dominic used, like my instincts were a fever, and they were both waiting for it to break. I nodded once, slow. "Fine. Dinner." She let out a breath like she'd won something. Then she leaned in and kissed my cheek, soft and quick, and walked past me into the house with the shopping bags. The moment she was inside, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. One notification, one name lighting up the screen, Dominic. Yes, I do. I was defensive and I shouldn't have been. I understand why you might feel uncomfortable about my friendship with Dominic. I waited for her to continue. So, I've been thinking, and I want to be more mindful of how things look. Maybe we should all hang out more as a group, so you don't feel left out. That's not the solution I was hoping for. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you should spend less time with Dominic. Period. Alicia's face fell. Greg, I can't just stop being friends with him. He's Susie's husband. We all live in the same neighborhood. We have the same friends. You can be neighborly without being whatever this is. What is this exactly? Because from where I stand, this is a friendship that you're trying to turn into something it's not. Dominic came by earlier to return your phone charger that you left in his truck. Alicia blinked. So? So when did you ride in his truck without Susie? We went to get coffee yesterday morning. Susie was sick, so it was just us. It's not a big deal. But the way she said it made it sound like a very big deal. You didn't mention that. Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. I knew you'd turn an innocent coffee run into some kind of evidence of an affair. Are you having an affair? The question hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. No, Alicia said finally. I'm not having an affair. But you want to be. That's not fair, isn't it? Because the way you look at him, the way you light up when he's around, the way you defend him, it sure seems like you want to be. Alicia sat down heavily on the couch. I don't know how to have this conversation with you. Try being honest. She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. Dominic makes me feel alive, young, attractive. Like I'm more than just a wife and a neighbor and a woman who goes to work and comes home and watches TV. There it was, the truth I'd been dreading. And I don't make you feel those things. You make me feel safe, comfortable, loved, but not alive. Not like that. No. It was like being punched in the stomach by someone wearing brass knuckles. So what do you want to do about it? I asked. I don't know. Well, I do. I want you to choose, him or me, this fantasy you've built up in your head, or the real life we've built together. Alicia looked up at me with tears in her eyes. That's not fair. You can't make me choose between a friend and my husband. He's not just a friend, Alicia, and we both know it. The next few days passed in tense silence. Alicia went to work, came home, made dinner, and acted like everything was normal. But I could feel the distance growing between us like a chasm that widened with every passing hour. On Thursday evening, I was in the garage working on my motorcycle when Susie appeared in the doorway. She was holding a casserole dish and wearing a concerned expression. Peace offering, she said, holding up the dish. Tuna noodle casserole, Alicia's favorite. Thanks, but we're good on dinner. Can I come in? I think we should talk. I set down my wrench and gestured to a lawn chair. Sure. Susie sat down and smoothed her skirt. She was always perfectly put together. Hair, makeup, clothes, the kind of woman who probably ironed her underwear. Alicia's upset, she said. I figured. She says you're making her choose between her friends and her marriage. I'm making her choose between appropriate behavior and inappropriate behavior. Susie sighed. Greg, I understand your concerns. I really do. But Dominic and Alicia are just friends. I should know I'm married to the man. And that doesn't bother you? The way he looks at her? The way they act around each other? Dominic's always been friendly. It's just his personality. Friendly is one thing. This is something else. Susie was quiet for a moment, studying her manicured nails. Can I ask you something? Do you trust your wife? I used to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I've got. Greg, marriage is hard. I should know. Dominic and I have been through our share of rough patches. But the foundation has to be trust. Without that, you've got nothing. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe the problem isn't Dominic. Maybe the problem is that you and Alicia have grown apart, and instead of dealing with that, you're blaming an innocent friendship. I looked at Susie, really looked at her. She was beautiful, well-spoken, and completely full of shit. You know what I think? I said. I think you like having Dominic distracted by my wife because it keeps him from paying too much attention to whatever you're up to. Susie's perfect composure cracked just a little. Excuse me? I've seen you at the parties, Susie. You disappear for long stretches of time. You come back with your lipstick smudged and your hair messed up, so maybe you're not the best person to lecture me about marriage. She stood up abruptly. I think this conversation is over. I think you're right. After she left, I sat in the garage thinking about the games people play. Everyone had secrets, everyone had agendas, and everyone was willing to lie to protect them. The next morning, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I followed my wife. Alicia left for work at 8:30, same as always, but instead of going straight to the hospital where she worked as a nurse, she stopped at the gym. Dominic's gym. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, they came out together, both carrying gym bags, both laughing about something. They stood by her car talking for another 10 minutes, and I watched Dominic touch her arm, her shoulder, her face. Then he kissed her. It wasn't a friendly peck on the cheek. It was a real kiss. The kind that meant something. The kind that changed everything. I sat in my car watching my wife kiss another man, and I felt something inside me break. Not my heart. That had been cracking for weeks. Something deeper. Something fundamental. When I got home, I called in sick to work. Then I sat at my kitchen table and made a list. The list had 2 columns. What I know and what I'm going to do about it. What I knew was simple. My wife was having an affair. Her best friend was covering for her. The man she was sleeping with was married to that best friend, and half the neighborhood probably knew about it. What I was going to do about it was more complicated. I could confront Alicia directly, but she'd already proven she was willing to lie to my face. I could confront Dominic, but that would likely end in violence, and I wasn't ready for those consequences yet. I could tell Susie what I'd seen, but she was clearly complicit. Or I could be smart about it. I spent the rest of the day planning. By the time Alicia came home, I had a strategy. "How was work?" I asked when she walked in. "Busy. Long day." She kissed my cheek, and I wondered if she could taste Dominic on her lips. I was thinking we should have Richard and Nikki over for dinner this weekend. It's been a while since we've entertained. Alicia looked surprised. "That sounds nice. Should we invite Susie and Dominic too?" "Let's keep it small this time." "Okay, sure." That night, after Alicia fell asleep, I went through her phone. I know it was a violation of privacy, but at that point, I was past caring about etiquette. What I found was worse than I'd expected. Text messages going back months, photos, voice messages, plans to meet up, conversations about me that made my blood boil. Greg's been suspicious lately. We need to be more careful. Alicia, maybe we should cool it for a while. Dominic, I don't want to cool it. I want to be with you. Alicia, soon. I promise. We just need to figure out the logistics. Dominic, I love you. Alicia, I love you too. Dominic, I screenshotted everything and emailed it to myself. Then I put her phone back and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Saturday evening, Richard and Nikki came over for dinner. I grilled steaks while Alicia made her famous potato salad. To anyone watching, we looked like a normal, happy couple. "So what's new in the neighborhood?" Nikki asked as we sat down to eat. "Same old drama," Richard said, although I heard the Hendersons are getting divorced. "Really?" Alicia looked surprised. They seemed happy. "Apparently, Mr. Henderson was having an affair with someone from his office," Nikki said. "Mrs. Henderson hired a private investigator." I felt Alicia tense beside me. "That's awful," she said. "I can't imagine how she must feel." "Betrayed, I'd guess," I said. "Humiliated, angry." "But also probably relieved to finally know the truth," Nikki added. "Sometimes the not knowing is worse than the knowing." "Is it?" Alicia asked. "Oh, absolutely. At least when you know, you can make decisions based on reality instead of suspicion." I raised my beer. "To knowing the truth." "To knowing the truth," Richard echoed. Alicia didn't raise her glass. After dinner, while Alicia was in the kitchen cleaning up, I walked Richard and Nikki to their car. "Everything okay?" Nikki asked quietly. "You seem tense tonight." "Just work stress." "Are you sure? Because if you ever need to talk..." "Actually, there is something, but not here. Can you come by tomorrow? Alicia's working a double shift." "Of course." The next day, I showed Richard and Nikki the screenshots. I watched their faces change as they read through the messages. "Jesus, Greg," Richard said finally. "I'm sorry." "How long have you known?" Nikki asked. "I suspected for weeks. I confirmed it Friday." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to destroy them. Both of them." Richard and Nikki exchanged a look. "Greg," Nikki said carefully, "I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. But maybe you should think about this before you do something you can't take back." "I have thought about it. I've thought about nothing else." "What do you need from us?" Richard asked. That's why Richard had been my best friend since college. No judgment, no lectures, just loyalty. "I need you to trust me. and I need you to be ready to choose sides. We already have, Nikki said. Monday morning, I put my plan into action. First, I made a call to the gym where Dominic worked out. I'd done my research. The place had a strict policy about members using the facilities for personal meetings that violated other members' marriages. A few anonymous tips about inappropriate behavior would get him banned. Next, I visited Dominic's workplace. He was a shift supervisor at the Ford plant, and I happened to know his boss from my restaurant days. A casual conversation about how some employees were using company time for personal matters, backed up by screenshots of text messages sent during work hours, would create problems for him there too. But those were just warning shots. The real plan was bigger. Tuesday evening, Alicia announced she was going out with Susie for girls' night. Have fun, I said, kissing her goodbye and tasting lies on her lips. As soon as she left, I called John. I need a favor, I said. Name it. I need you to follow my wife tonight. Take pictures of wherever she goes and whoever she meets. Dude, are you sure about this? I'm sure. Okay, but you owe me a steak dinner. While John was documenting my wife's evening activities, I paid a visit to Susie's house. Her car was in the driveway, which meant she wasn't out with Alicia like they'd claimed. I knocked on the door, and Susie answered wearing a bathrobe and a guilty expression. Greg, what are you doing here? Looking for Alicia. She said she was having girls' night with you. Susie's face went through several expressions before settling on panic. Oh, she was here earlier, but she left. She said she had to run an errand. What kind of errand? I don't remember. You know how Alicia is. Actually, I'm starting to think I don't know how Alicia is at all. I left Susie standing in her doorway and drove to the hotel where John had texted me the address. Sure enough, Alicia's car was in the parking lot, along with Dominic's truck. I sat in my car for 2 hours, taking pictures of their vehicles and waiting. When they finally came out, they were holding hands and laughing. Dominic walked Alicia to her car, kissed her goodbye, and watched her drive away before getting in his truck. I followed him home and watched him sneak into his own house like a teenager coming home past curfew. Wednesday morning, I was waiting in the kitchen when Alicia came downstairs. How was girls' night? I asked. Good, relaxing. Susie and I just talked and watched movies. What movies? Romantic comedies mostly. You know, girl stuff. Sounds fun. What time did you get home? I was asleep. Around 11. She'd actually gotten home at 1:15. I knew because I'd been watching from the living room window. I'm glad you had a good time, I said. That afternoon, I made another call. This one was to Dominic's wife. Susie, it's Greg. I need to talk to you about something important. Oh, hi, Greg. What's up? I know about the affair. Silence. Susie? I don't know what you're talking about. I have pictures, text messages, hotel receipts. I know everything. More silence. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to help me end it. Greg, or I can show Dominic's boss the evidence I have of him using company time to arrange meetings with my wife. I can show his gym the photos I took of them together. I can post everything on social media and let the whole neighborhood know what kind of people they really are. You wouldn't? Try me. Susie was quiet for a long time. What do you want me to do? I want you to help me catch them in the act, publicly, in a way that destroys both of their reputations permanently. Why would I help you humiliate my husband? Because your husband is cheating on you with my wife, and they both think you're too stupid to notice. Because they're planning to leave us both and run off together. And because if you help me, you get to be the wronged wife instead of the complicit friend. Another long silence. There's a company party Friday night at the plant, Susie said finally. Dominic asked me to skip it because he said he wasn't feeling well, but I bet he's planning to meet Alicia. Where? Probably the hotel they've been using. The Marriott on 5th Street. How do you know about the hotel? Because I've been following them too, Greg. I'm not as stupid as everyone thinks. Friday evening, everything came together. Alicia announced she was working late at the hospital. Dominic told Susie he was too sick to go to his company party. And I told both of them that I was going out of town for the weekend to visit my brother. Instead, Susie and I sat in my car outside the Marriott, waiting. I can't believe we're doing this, Susie said. Having second thoughts? No, I just can't believe it's come to this. At 8:30, Dominic's truck pulled into the parking lot. At 8:45, Alicia's car arrived. We watched them meet in the lobby, kiss, and disappear into the elevator. Room 412, Susie said. That's the room they always use. How do you know that? Because I called the hotel and asked. Told them I was Dominic's wife and needed to reach him in an emergency. They gave me the room number. At 9:15, we took the elevator to the 4th floor. Susie had a key card, another thing she'd obtained by claiming to be Dominic's wife and saying she'd lost her key. We stood outside room 412, listening to the sounds coming from inside. The sounds of my wife having sex with another man. "Are you ready?" I asked. Susie nodded, tears streaming down her face. I slid the key card into the lock, and we opened the door. The look on their faces was worth every moment of pain I'd endured over the past few months. Alicia screamed and grabbed the sheet to cover herself. Dominic jumped up, naked and panicked, looking like he wanted to run but having nowhere to go. "Surprise," I said calmly. "Greg, I can explain." Alicia started. "No need. I think the situation is pretty self-explanatory." Susie walked past me into the room, her phone out, taking pictures. "Susie, what are you doing?" Dominic demanded. "Documenting your adultery for the divorce proceedings," she replied without looking up from her phone. "This isn't what it looks like," Alicia said, which was possibly the stupidest thing she could have said under the circumstances. "Really? Because it looks like you're naked in a hotel room with another woman's husband." I walked over to the desk where their clothes were scattered and picked up Alicia's purse. Inside, I found the hotel receipt. She'd paid for the room. "How long?" I asked. "Greg, please. How long have you been sleeping with him?" Alicia looked at Dominic, who was frantically trying to put his pants on. 3 months, she whispered. 3 months. I nodded. "So basically since the day we had that conversation about trust and commitment. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. Things don't just happen, Alicia. People make choices. You made a choice to lie to me every day for 3 months. You made a choice to sneak around behind my back. You made a choice to sleep with another woman's husband in a hotel room that you paid for." Dominic finally found his voice. "Look, Greg, I know this looks bad." "Shut up," I said without taking my eyes off Alicia. "I'm not talking to you." "Greg, I love you," Alicia said. "This thing with Dominic, it's just physical. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything. It means our marriage is over." "No, it doesn't have to be. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. I'll end it with Dominic right now." I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. "You think this is about jealousy? You think this is about me being hurt that you chose someone else? Isn't it? No, Alicia. This is about respect. This is about honesty. This is about the fact that you looked me in the eye every day for 3 months and lied to me. This is about the fact that you made me feel crazy for suspecting what was actually happening." I turned to Dominic, who was now fully dressed and looking like he wanted to disappear. "And you. You came to my house, you ate my food, you shook my hand and looked me in the eye and told me you respected my marriage while you were fucking my wife behind my back. Greg, I told you to shut up." Susie finished taking pictures and looked up at her husband with disgust. "Pack your things when you get home. I want you out by tomorrow." "Susie, baby, we can talk about this." "No, we can't. We're done talking. We're done pretending. We're done." She walked out of the room, leaving the 3 of us alone. "I'm going home," I said to Alicia. "When you're done here, you can come get your things, but you're not staying in my house tonight." "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care. Figure it out." I started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Oh, and Alicia? That conversation we had about choosing between him and me? You made your choice. Now you get to live with it." I left them in that hotel room and drove home. My house felt different. Quieter, emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Like a weight had been lifted. I poured myself a whiskey and sat on my back deck, looking out at the yard I'd spent so many weekends maintaining. The yard where Alicia and I had talked about planting a garden. The yard where we'd planned to build a swing set for the kids we'd never had. My phone buzzed with text messages. First from Alicia. "Please don't do this. We can fix this." Then from Dominic. "I'm sorry, man. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I deleted both messages without responding. Around midnight, I heard a car in the driveway. Through the front window, I watched Alicia get out of her car and walk slowly toward the house. She looked defeated, broken. She tried her key, but I'd already changed the locks. She knocked on the door. "Greg, please let me in. We need to talk." I sat on the couch and said nothing. "Greg, I know you're in there. Please, just give me 5 minutes." I turned up the TV. She knocked for another 10 minutes, then I heard her crying on the front porch. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 5 years, wanted to open the door and comfort her. But a bigger part of me remembered the lies, the gaslighting, the way she'd made me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. Eventually, she gave up and left. Saturday morning, John came over with coffee and donuts. "Rough night?" he asked. "Actually, no. I slept better than I have in months." "Really?" "Really. It's amazing how peaceful things get once you stop living in denial." "What's the plan now?" "Divorce. Clean break. Move on with my life." "What about revenge?" I smiled. "John, what do you think last night was?" He grinned back. "Fair point. Besides, the best revenge is living well, and I plan to live very well." That afternoon, Alicia came back with Susie to get her things. I watched from the garage as they loaded boxes into Alicia's car. She kept looking toward the house, probably hoping I'd come out and talk to her. I didn't. When they were done, Susie knocked on the garage door. "She wants to know if you'll talk to her," she said. "No." "She's staying at her sister's place. Good for her?" "Greg, I know you're angry." "I'm not angry, Susie. Angry implies I still care enough to feel strong emotions about this. I'm done. Completely, totally done." Susie studied my face. "You really mean that?" "I really do." "For what it's worth, I think you're handling this with a lot more class than I would." "What are you going to do about Dominic? Divorce him? Take half his pension? Make sure everyone at the plant knows why?" "Sounds fair." After they left, I walked through my house, noting all the spaces where Alicia's things used to be. The empty closet, the bare bathroom counter, the missing photos. It should have felt sad, but it didn't. It felt like a fresh start. Sunday evening, Richard and Nikki came over with takeout Chinese food. "How are you holding up?" Nikki asked. "Better than expected." "Any regrets about how you handled it?" I thought about that. "No. She made her choice. I just made sure she had to own the consequences." "What's next?" "I'm thinking about selling the house. Too many memories. Maybe move closer to the city." "Big changes." "Good changes." We ate dinner and watched football, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not the suspicious, paranoid version of myself I'd become, but the confident, decisive man I used to be. Around 10 o'clock, my phone rang. Alicia's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then I blocked her number. 3 weeks later, I ran into Dominic at the grocery store. He looked like hell, unshaven, wrinkled clothes, the cocky swagger completely gone. "Greg," he said when he saw me, "can we talk?" "We have nothing to talk about." "I just want to apologize. What happened? It wasn't supposed to go that far." "But it did." "I know, and I'm sorry. I lost my job, my wife, my house. I'm living in a studio apartment and driving for Uber to pay child support." I should have felt satisfaction hearing about his downfall, but mostly I just felt indifferent. "That's what happens when you make stupid choices," I said. "Alicia's been trying to reach you." "I know. I blocked her number." "She wants to work things out?" "Too bad." Dominic shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I know I screwed up, but she really does love you. What we had, it was just physical. It didn't mean anything." "If it didn't mean anything, then she threw away her marriage for nothing. That's even worse." I walked away, leaving him standing in the cereal aisle looking lost. A month later, the divorce papers were finalized. Alicia had tried to fight it at first, demanding counseling and mediation. But when her lawyer saw the evidence I had, photos, text messages, hotel receipts, he advised her to accept my terms. I kept the house, the car, and most of our savings. She got her personal belongings and half the value of my 401k. It was fair, which was more than she deserved. The day the papers were signed, I came home to find her sitting on my front steps. "I've been waiting for you," she said. "You're trespassing." 5 minutes, please." Against my better judgment, I sat down beside her. "I made a mistake," she said, "the biggest mistake of my life." "Yes, you did. I want to fix it." "You can't?" "Why not? People work through infidelity all the time." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. But something fundamental had changed, not in her, but in me. "Because I don't love you anymore," I said. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I don't love you, I don't trust you, and I don't want to be married to you. It's not about forgiveness or working through problems. It's about the fact that you're not the person I thought you were." "People change, Greg. I can change." "You're right. People do change. I changed. I used to be the kind of man who would have begged you to come back, who would have blamed himself for your affair, who would have spent years in therapy trying to rebuild something that was fundamentally broken." I stood up. "But I'm not that man anymore. I'm the kind of man who knows his worth, and I'm worth more than being someone's second choice." I walked into my house and closed the door. 6 months later, I sold the house and moved to a condo downtown. New place, new job, new life. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just enjoying the freedom of being single and honest. Richard and Nikki visited often, and through them I heard occasional updates about Alicia and Dominic. They'd tried to make a go of it after their respective divorces, but it hadn't lasted. Turns out a relationship built on lies and betrayal wasn't sustainable. Who could have seen that coming? Alicia had moved back in with her parents. Dominic was still driving for Uber and living in his studio apartment. Susie had taken him for everything he was worth in the divorce and moved to Florida with their kids. I felt no satisfaction in their misery, but I felt no sympathy either. They'd made their choices, and choices have consequences. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I was having dinner at a restaurant downtown when I saw a familiar face across the room. It was Alicia, sitting alone at the bar, nursing a glass of wine. She looked older, sadder, but still beautiful. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old attraction, the old love. Then I remembered the lies, the betrayal, the months of gaslighting. I remembered the way she'd made me feel crazy for trusting my instincts. I paid my check and left without saying hello. Outside, I took a deep breath of cool autumn air and smiled. Not because I was happy about Alicia's apparent loneliness, but because I realized I was completely, genuinely over her. I was free. 2 years later, I met Sarah at a coffee shop near my office. She was a teacher, divorced with no kids, honest to a fault. We dated for 6 months before I told her about Alicia and the affair. "How did you get over it?" she asked. By realizing that her betrayal said everything about her character and nothing about my worth. "Do you ever regret how you handled it?" "No. I gave her exactly what she deserved, the consequences of her choices." "No second chances." "Some things can't be fixed, Sarah. Some betrayals are too fundamental. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them." We got married a year later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Richard was my best man. Nikki cried during the vows. As I watched Sarah walk down the aisle, I thought about second chances and new beginnings. I thought about the difference between love built on lies and love built on truth. And I thought about how sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something better with someone who deserves it. After the ceremony, Richard pulled me aside. "You know Alicia's here, right?" he said. I looked around and spotted her standing across the street, watching through the church windows. She looked thin, tired, older than her years. "How long has she been there?" I asked. "About an hour." I watched her for a moment. This woman who had once been my whole world. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret, just indifference. "Should I call the police?" Richard asked. "No, let her watch. Let her see what she gave up." I turned my back on the window and walked into my reception, into my new life, into my future with a woman who knew how to tell the truth. Behind me, Alicia stood on the sidewalk, watching the happiness she'd chosen to throw away. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt truly, completely satisfied. Not because she was suffering, but because I wasn't. I was free, I was happy, and I was exactly where I was supposed to be.